Welcome to Handmade with Holly. My name is Holly Michelson, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Del Mar, New York, just outside of Albany. I'm really excited that you're here with me. Today we'll be making this Sweet Conversations triple cube Valentine card. But don't let the Valentine put you off. I also have some great samples using other stamp sets that I'll show you at the end. This version features Highland Heather, which is probably my favorite Stampin' Up! Color. But we're gonna make a version today using Pool Party. And I thought I would do that and then perhaps give this one to my husband for Valentine's Day. The purple one is a little bit more feminine, and I think the Pool Party will help make the Valentine a little bit more masculine for him. So before we get started, I just want to remind you, if you're not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please click on the word subscribe in red, and then also the notifications bell right next to it. If you click on the notifications bell, YouTube will notify you each time I upload a new video, and then you won't miss any of my projects. Starting off, we need a full-size sheet of cardstock in whatever color of your choice. And ultimately, our goal is to get that piece of paper down to an 8 by 8.5 inch piece. Don't worry too much about the measurements. I will have a tutorial that you can download in the description, and that will give you all of the pertinent information. So really, when I started with my cardstock, I only needed to make one cut. Cardstock is already 8.5, and so I just needed to cut that cardstock right here at 8, and now I have this 8.5 by 8 piece of cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and rotate it in this direction so that it is longer than it is taller, and that's how we're going to start off. Now you can do this on your trimmer, but I frankly prefer to do the next step on my Simply Scoring tool. This makes it a little bit faster to score, and I love the fact that I can use these markers to pre-set up where I want to score, especially if you're making several of these at once. You can, just set up your markers and quickly make your score lines. I will note that a standard scoring tool comes with 3 markers. You'll notice I have 6. At one time, you could buy a pack of refills for the scoring tool, and so I'm lucky enough to have some extra ones. And if you don't have those, though, you could always just move the first one to the last position when you're ready to do that score mark. Okay, so the Simply Scoring tool also comes with this embossing tool that is handily stored right down here in the tray. This is called a stylus. I'm going to put my stylus right in the ridge where the marker is and drag it straight down, making my score line, and it's perfectly even. You'll notice I'm scoring at 2, 4, 6, and 8. So I'm going to repeat that at the 4-inch mark, at the 6-inch mark, and then again at the 8-inch mark. So see how fast that was to score? I didn't have to keep moving my paper and lining it up like I would on my trimmer. You can absolutely do this on the trimmer. I just find it faster to use this tool, and since I have it, why not? So now that we've scored our paper, the next piece is that we need to cut it. We're trying to make this triple cube shape, and so what we're going to do is we're going to lob off 2 pieces to make the right side front cube and the left side front cube, and then the rest of it is going to be the base that the cubes are attached to. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and this paper was in the 8.5 inch direction. I'm now going to rotate it 1/4 turn so that it is in the 8-inch direction. So I want it to be on the shorter side now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off 2 2-inch pieces. So I'm looking for a 2-inch piece, but I need 2 of them. Just get my scoring blade out of the way, and I'm going to go ahead and cut once, get this strip, and then I'm going to go ahead and do it again and get this strip. And this piece is going to be the back or the base, so no more cuts necessary there. Next thing that we're going to do is finger fold on our score lines, and I'm going to do that on all 3 pieces just to be efficient. All right, now we're going to come in with our bone folder, and we're going to give each one of these creases a good press, and that's going to help us get a nice square shape and really give us strong folds. Okay, so first off, we're going to go ahead and make our base. And I'm literally just going to fold this in and then fold this down. You can see I did not cut my paper perfectly. That doesn't 100% line up. So that's on me for cutting my paper a little crooked. I think it'll be fine though. It'll manage to get tucked in to the card, and I don't think it'll be that noticeable. If you have the Stampin' Seal Plus, you'll notice this one's teal, this one's blue. This is the regular Stampin' Seal. This is the Stampin' Seal Plus. This one is stronger and is great for 3-dimensional objects. We could also use this, and I might actually switch to that. So now that I have adhesive there, you'll notice I put it on that little 1/4 inch area. I'm just gonna bring this together, and I'm gonna try to just get it as straight as I can and give that a finger press. And I'm gonna come back in and repeat the same on both of my smaller pieces. Just giving that a finger press to give it a good seal. Again, just sort of make any little refinements if necessary, if your paper wasn't cut 100% straight. Okay, so now if I pop this up, you can see I have this tower for the back of the card. That's what supports the smaller cubes. And then these cubes are what are going to attach to the front of the card to make our triple cube. Now, at this point, we want to think a little bit about how we orient these cubes. And the reason being is that we probably want to hide our seam. So I have a seam right there. And probably want to put that more toward the back so that that is not as visible. So see how I did that? They were like this. This is where my seams were right in the front. And then I just kind of gave it one more fold. And so now the seam is at the top. But you'll also notice that by doing that, the seam is going to be at the back of the card, so it won't be visible. And it makes the inside piece where we attach the card, see how there's this flap here on the inside of the card? That's going to end up at the top. And that way it won't really be visible to the recipient. Now again, I'm going to show you that one more time. So if you start with your 2 pieces with your seam right here in the center facing you, and then you kind of just rotate the cube once, now your seam is at the top, and that's going to place your flap at the top of the cube where it will be less visible on the inside. Now, if you attach your cube in a different way and that's visible, you could always put some paper on the inside to hide that, and I'll show you an example of that at the end. Okay, so since I want my cube to attach like this with that extra flap on the ceiling, that means I need my adhesive right here on this square, okay? So if you go back, you can sort of test it out and look, and you see that that flap is on the top, and then just go ahead and fold it flat, and we're gonna put the adhesive on the back of this top section. So I'm gonna come in here again with the Seal Plus, which is gonna give me great adhesion. And I'm gonna do the same thing on this one. Now the good thing is once you put the Stampin' Seal Plus on the back there, you're gonna know where you want to attach the card. So now just go ahead and flatten your tower and line up our cube along the bottom, the left, and the center, and finger press that into place. And we're going to do the same thing. So take the area where you have the adhesive and we're going to line that up. This time you actually have the cube on the left that you can also align it with to kind of make sure they're straight and even. Looks pretty good to me, and I'm going to give that a finger press. Now, just like that, we have our cube. So this is what the card looks like fully assembled and three-dimensional. But this card can be mailed. If you just do this and press it down, the card folds completely flat and it will fit in an envelope. So here's a standard A2 envelope, and you'll see that the card fits perfectly inside there and is able to be mailed. So no worries about that. Although I do have to say, depending on how much you embellish it and how many layers you use, this card can get a little bit heavy, and so that's something to think about with postage. I'll show you a few examples at the end. I think this one's just fine with the paper that I used here. Perhaps the dimensionals, I did use a couple of dimensionals, may have given it just a little extra bulk that might require another 15 cents or so in postage. So back to the pool party version. Now that we have this all assembled, we will need to put our matting layer and our designer series paper on. So for these, I brought in some designer series paper from the Sunshine and Rainbows pack. So this is the designer series paper. Right now it is free with any $50 purchase during celebration. So today is January 22nd, 2022. And this bright and sunshiny paper is available free of charge for celebration with any $50 purchase. And so even though this wasn't the paper that coordinated with the Sweet Conversations stamp set, I wanted to bring it in, A, because it had these really adorable little hearts on it, and I'm making a Valentine, and B, because it's the perfect match for pool party. And so I thought it would kind of look adorable. Remember, on this card, it's very feminine in my opinion, and I wanted to try to make the card a little bit more masculine for the hubs. Just in the interest of time, I cut the pieces for us in advance, but basically what I needed was 6 pieces of basic white cardstock. This is the regular basic white, not the thick. I have 6 of these, and then I have 6 from the designer series paper. Now the matting layer needs to be slightly larger than the DSP so that it can create the frame. These measure 1 7/8 square. If you can see that, it's basic white, 1 7/8 square. And the DSP is 1 3/4 square, which is just slightly smaller so that we get this nice matte. I'm going to go back to the regular Stampin' Seal, and I'm just putting a little bit of adhesive on the back and then centering the DSP within the white square so that you don't have to watch me glue 6 of these. I'm going to edit that out of the video and save you some time. So now I have my 6 squares that measure 1 7/8 all the way around. I have 6 of them with my designer series paper attached to the white backing. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and attach these to my triple cube card. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on both of the top sections, both table areas, if you will, and then the fronts of both of these. Some people who have made this card will also put designer series paper all the way on the inside of these triple cubes. And if you're doing that, you will need an additional 8 white squares and an additional 8 pieces of DSP. I honestly didn't think it was necessary, and I didn't think it was the best use of my gorgeous designer series paper. So I opt to go with what some other people do and be a little bit more paper conscious and not do that on the inside. Another reason why I don't love doing it on the inside is it does add quite a bit of weight and thickness to the card. So if you decide to do the DSP on the inside like this all the way around, you will need more postage there. So probably the easiest thing to do to attach your panels is to flatten the card while you work. Now, one of the things I want to mention is that some paper has direction. If you look at these hearts, they have a direction. There's a face up and there's an upside down or a sideways. So if you're using DSP with direction, be sure that you are cutting your paper correctly, that your DSP can have a top direction. You look at this sample here, I used the Simply Marvelous paper. I use this side that looks marbly. Part of why I did that over this side is I thought that the tones were a little lighter and that it provided greater contrast for my Candy Conversation hearts. In the Sweet Talk Designer Series paper that goes with this suite, there is a great piece of paper that would also be perfect. So if you don't have the Simply Marvelous, then you can look in the Sweet Talk pack of paper for this one with the heart lollipops. And on the back is this beautiful Blushing Bride marbly sheet of DSP. This would be absolutely perfect for this version of the card. It's pretty similar, in fact, to the Simply Marvelous. I chose to use the Simply Marvelous because this is so gorgeous that I didn't want to waste it. I didn't want this to be hidden on the underside of the paper here. And if you're like me, I earned quite a few celebration items. So I have multiple packs of the Simply Marvelous. So I didn't mind using that Blushing Bride sheet as opposed to my Sweet Talk where I only had 2 sheets of that lollipop paper and I wanted to save it for another really cool project. There's lots of options for the paper that you can use on these cards. Look around in what you have. It doesn't always have to be something that came out of the exact same pack of paper. We want to make sure that our hearts are facing upward, and we're going to go ahead and put the Stampin' Seal on these and attach them to the card. Well, out of respect for your time, I just put the Stampin' Seal adhesive on the back of the other 5, and I'm just going to quickly mount all of these. So I'm just folding it flat, makes it a lot easier for me to attach my panels when they're flat. You want to try to get these on there nice and straight, and remember to check what direction your paper is facing if you have a paper with direction like I do. Now, if you had wanted to put DSP on the inside of these, you would have done that prior to sealing them. You remember the step where we laid them flat and we brought the 2 ends together and pressed? Before you do that step, you would put designer series paper on the inside if you were going to put paper inside there. You could sneak it in. Even though the cube is assembled, you could get in there. It would just be a little bit more difficult to do it that way if you were going to put paper in there. Again, I'm not a fan of that. I think it adds too much weight and bulk to the card. So I really like doing it this way. Okay, so now my base is assembled and I get to decorate. Let's take a look at the dies that I used for this card. First, I brought in the Tasteful labels, and I grabbed this die for my sentiment. And the reason why I did that is because the sentiment label in this set was too short for this stamp Happy Valentine's Day, and so I needed something a little bit longer. I will say that this Tasteful Labels set has nothing to do with the Sweet Conversation stamps. It's completely separate, but it's really an awesome set. I bought it maybe a year and a half ago. It's still current in the catalog, and with so many different shapes and sizes, I very often find this my go-to die set. If you don't have it, I would put this one on your wish list because it's super versatile. These are just good general sentiment labels that anybody can use all the time. Now also for this card, I used a number of dies. I used this funny looking die to create this shape, which is going to fold up and become the envelope on the front of this card. I also used these little hearts. And what's nice is you get 6 of them. You get one where there's 2 together and you get 4 individual ones. And I used all 6 of them at the same time. And I cut out these little hearts that I accented the project with, and that left me with 3 extras, which we'll be using for this card. And I also used this die from the Sweethearts dies to cut out the tag that is up here accenting the card saying, "Happy to have you in my life." And you might be wondering what I did with these. Well, these coordinate with the Designer Series paper. So all of these adorable little hearts that you see here on this card, they were actually cut from the Designer Series paper. So you can see I used my snips and cut a piece of paper off, something smaller that I could, and I actually did it twice, that I could fit through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. Then I ran the paper through using these dies. So there's 3 different size hearts here on the paper, and each size of heart has a coordinating die, and I use these dies to cut myself out a pile of these hearts. Not only did I use a number of them on this card, but it left me with a whole assortment that I'll be able to choose from on the card that we're making now. Sometimes there is a heart that's cut off the edge of the page. You know, it goes right to the edges, so not all the hearts are full hearts. I still cut some of those out because they can be really useful in projects. So while this one is missing the bottom piece, and what happened here actually was my die jumped as it was passing through the machine. It shifted and it ended up nicking the bottom of my next heart. I still kept it. I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. And then this one was at the very bottom edge of the paper. You can see this is the straight edge for the bottom of the paper. I still cut that one out, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that one as well. I don't like to waste anything. I try pretty hard to find ways to use all kinds of scraps and bits, and no one's the wiser for it. Back to our project here. I've got all this assortment of fun things that I can embellish with, and so I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment here on this label. So with that, I'm going to bring in the Happy Valentine's Day stamp. I stamped in Highland Heather on that one. What do you say we try Granny Apple Green? And I really want my sentiment to show up. So I think I'm going to go for the Granny Apple Green, and we'll make sure we work in at least one of those hearts to pull that in. Just remember, I'm making this for my hubby, and he probably isn't as into purple as I am. Got my sentiment right there. And I'm also going to bring in the Happy to Have You in My Life. And I'm going to use that same Granny Apple Green, and I'm going to put it here on this tag. I'm doing that a little bit more toward the top. And the reason for that is so that I can stamp some hearts at the bottom. So now I have Blushing Bride, brand new. I just opened this for this project. And I'm going to go ahead and line my tag up with a straight line on my grid paper and bring the hearts in at the bottom. Nice. Now on this one, I also added some hearts to my tag just to add a little bit of embellishment. So I'm going to do that again. This is a little bit trickier. I want to get the rest of that Blushing Bride ink off because this stamp has 3 hearts at a time, but now I only want to stamp 1 at a time. So I'm just inking up the leftmost heart, and I'm going to come in and do that haphazardly around my sentiment. You see I got one that just went off the tag there a little bit. I don't want this second heart to end up on my project, so I'm just going to put a little Post-it note over that and then come in and stamp my heart. Okay, you know, I'm going to clean that stamp off so I don't have to keep doing that. Okay, now that there's no ink on that second heart, I don't have to worry about it so much. Just be careful when you're inking it up so that you're only getting ink on that first heart. Okay, I like that. This one was an accident, but I might as well make it look deliberate. And maybe I'll stamp one off over there. So maybe a little bit over here just to make that all look deliberate. Okay, not 100% happy with that, but in the interest of time, I will live with it. Now, I just put this piece of scratch paper down because I like to keep my grid paper clean while I'm shooting a video. That way you don't have to be distracted by all the smuts. For this tag, I'm going to come in and add 2 little hearts. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to flip them over here on my silicone craft mat. I'm just going to bring in a dab of the Tombow. And now I'm going to just try to pick this up. Tweezers would be really good here if you have them. And I'm just placing my heart over the 2 that I stamped, kind of creating like a foreground background effect where I have the 3 hearts stamped and then the 2 glued on top and giving that a little bit of visual interest there. All right, what might be fun is to add a little bit of pool party twine to this tag before I tie it on. Just give it a little bit of depth and texture. I happen to have this Silver and Pool Party Baker's Twine spool. It's retired. It's probably been retired for more than a year. Since I have it, I hope you'll indulge me. You can look for some sort of twine or ribbon in coordinating colors to match your project. And I'm just going to run that through, give it a snip, and then tie a double knot. Just something to give it a little texture. Baker's twine can sometimes unravel. So this is 3 different things, white, pool party, and silver twisted together. And at the ends, I don't want it to fray. So I'm just making a little knot here at the end. And then I can kind of cut off that frayed part. It's kind of interesting. It gives us a little bit of texture on the card. So I'm going to take this piece here that's intended for the envelope. If you notice, 3 of the flaps are the same size and 1 flap is a little bit smaller. So I'm just going to fold on the lines made by the die, just finger folding. Only need to do that on the 3 sides that I'm going to bend. And then I'm going to bring in the bone folder to give these a good crease. And now I kind of want my flaps to be like that, so I see the bottom flap of the envelope. And I'm going to go ahead and put my Stampin' Seal at the bottom and bring that flap up. And now I'm going to bring in my last heart. Some more glue on that one. Again, tweezers here would be good. Stampin' Up doesn't sell tweezers anymore. And I'm just going to glue my heart down as though I put like a little wax seal on my envelope. Now I told you I was going to show you my little trick with this one, the one where the heart went right up to the bottom edge of the paper. So put a little bit of seal on the back of that, and I'm going to go ahead and tuck that right in. and nobody would even know that it's missing part of the heart. So cute. Okay, so let's go ahead and plan out our decoration. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. Going to use this on the top again like I did before. I could do it on this side this time just to mix it up a little bit if I wanted. So then I'm going to choose a large heart for the other side. Maybe I'll go with the Granny Apple Green, which will nicely pick up on the ink in this tag. I got lucky there, I didn't plan that. And now I'm gonna pick a pair of small ones for over here. And I think I'm going to put this one down and then cover it with the yellow one. This was right up against the edge and it's a little bit of a flat cut. It's not a perfect heart, so I can hide that and tuck that away. Then over here, I'm gonna bring in the Text Me that had the cutoff, remember? And I'm gonna hide that, but I wanna bring in another color. So how about I go with maybe this purple here. This is the Highland Heather. So Granny Apple Green, So Saffron, Blushing Bride, Pool Party, Highland Heather. We're gonna put this over here. Oops, nope. If we're gonna put this here, I don't like this pink with that pink. So I'm gonna switch the two of these and bring them over here and them over here. Again, this is why you wanna pre-plan it. You don't wanna pick one and adhere it down. You really wanna kind of play with your arrangement. What color do I want next? I've got two pink. I could use another green, but if I use green, I'm gonna be saying text me again, and I've already said that. I've got two love yous, and I've got two text me's, a hug me. So I could bring in this BFF. Oh no, I want a big one. So it looks like I have a text me or a text me. I don't really want to use text me again. So I'm going to come back to my paper and I'm going to find another option. Let's bring in the Hug Me. I think this looks pretty good. We've got some nice variety, a really nice mix of colors here. The hearts tie together nicely. These little petal pink hearts kind of tie together nicely. A little bit of repetition of phrases, but they're spread out a little bit. I'm pretty happy with this layout, so I think these are the ones we're going to use. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start attaching these down. The two big hearts, the one up here and the one down here, I'm going to do with dimensionals. Again, if you are at all concerned about mailing or the cost of postage, the dimensionals are definitely optional. I do think that the dimensionals on this card in these two places potentially run the risk for you to need additional postage. In my case, this is for my husband, so I'm not worried about it. I'm going to hand it to him. So I'm going to put down my two ones with dimensionals. For this one, I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal. And I'm just going to put that down at maybe a little angle for some visual interest. And I'm fine with it popping off the card, even the cording, because again, I'm just handing it to my husband. If you're at all concerned about that, you could always leave the twine off. So the last piece is that we're going to need to put our sentiment on the inside. So what I like to do is just get some adhesive right here in the center. You want to get it in the center of your sentiment, and then just kind of work your way in. A little tricky, just kind of get it in there and try to see where the center is. You really just want adhesive in the center of the sentiment because you want it to be able to move. You don't want it flat down in there. If you pop your card open, you can see it's kind of like floating there a little bit. So as you move the card, it moves a little bit, but it's not actually attached down to the cubes because we want the card to stand like this, and we want it to be here. Well, so that is the triple cube card with our adorable little sentiment on the inside. I just love it. So just as a quick review, the difference between the two of these is the Highland Heather versus the Pool Party. I used all of the same embellishments by cutting them out of the Sweet Talk Designer Series paper. On this one, I used the Highland Heather ink. On this one, the Granny Apple Green. And on this one, I added some Pool Party twine, which coordinated with the paper. Now, if you don't have the Sunshine and Rainbows paper, another alternative would be to bring in this sheet of paper from the Simply Marvelous. So this sheet is a combination of Coastal Cabana and Pool Party together. And I think if I were bringing in this sheet, I would use this side. This would be a great substitute if you don't have the Sunshine and Rainbows DSP like I did, yet you still want to make this card that coordinates with these adorable Candy Conversation hearts. Here's an alternate example for you. It's probably easier to see the card if it's flat, so I'm going to do that for a moment. These were all cut out using dies from the Brilliant Wings die set. This one I stamped using this stamp, and I also cut it out with the Brilliant Wings dies. And then I just varied it up. You see I kind of got some pink in all three of them. I got some pale papaya in multiple places, and then also I distributed the Daffodil Delight. So I made myself an assortment of butterflies, and then I started to play and arrange them. And you really do want to kind of distribute the colors. But this is Polished Pink Stampin' Blends on Memento ink, and this is Pale Papaya, Daffodil Delight, the same three colors. And the paper that I used here is also from Simply Marvelous, the same paper that I used for this card, and the same paper where you could get an alternate version for the Pool Party card. So I used basic white cardstock, then I did my matting layer in Balmy Blue, and then I used this sheet of paper from Simply Marvelous in order to create my card. For this version, instead of using the thick basic white, I used the regular basic white cardstock. You can see it still made a lovely card. Cardstock is not quite as thick as the colored cardstock or the thick version of the basic white, but you can see the card is still sturdy, stands up, keeps its shape. That may also decrease the weight of the card, making it so you could still mail this for regular postage if you use the regular basic white for your card base. Now on the inside, I use this really cute little sentiment label that also came from the same set of sentiment labels called Tasteful Labels, and I use this one right here. You'll notice that the Butterfly Brilliant stamp set does not have any sentiments. So if you choose to use this one for a card like this, you're going to need to bring in a sentiment from some other stamp set. You can use anything that you have, but I happened to choose this stamp right here called A Little Something to Brighten Your Day. I thought that went nicely with this card with these really bright colors, including the polished pink. And it also gave me a chance to play with my brand new stamp set, Rainbow of Happiness, which I have not yet gotten to play with. Just colored a few gems with my markers, and I just took the basic rhinestone gems and colored those and was able to make them match my butterflies. And then finally, I'm going to bring in one last sample. And this sample was the first time I ever made a triple cube card. And I made this in my Uplines class. So I can't take credit for this lovely idea. And this designer series paper is now retired. This was in the holiday catalog in 2020. But this features the Snowflake Wishes bundle. And so all of these adorable snowflakes all come from the dies that are a part of this awesome bundle. So my upline is a woman named Pat Selhoff and her daughter Laura Bauer. The two of them are a duo, run their stamping classes together. And so I took their holiday class in 2020 and made this adorable card. A couple things I wanted to point out was you can see this is an example of where the designer series paper and the card stock are used on the inside. So the card base here is actually a white card base. We left the back white so that you could write a message. Now, on a card like this, you could write a message right on this Highland Heather, but if you don't want to do that, you could also cut out some white panels and put them on the back and write your message on that. But Pat and Laura chose to add Coastal Cabana inside their card, and also they matted and added DSP inside all of those cubes. And they also stamped a sentiment on the bottom corner. So where here mine are blank, they actually stamped a sentiment on the bottom corner, which you could choose to do just to improve the presentation when the card is folded flat coming out of the envelope. That is also an option. In my case, I just left it the solid color. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought of some different ideas on how to use this triple cube card. We've now seen it with 3 completely different stamp sets: Brilliant Butterflies, Sweet Conversations, and also Snowflake Wishes. So this fun fold is fabulous for a whole variety of stamp sets. I think it's important that you're looking for a stamp set that has some small embellishments. Obviously, you have small surface area where you're going to be able to embellish. And you also want to think about something that has some variety. Like why these hearts work is there's different sizes of hearts, different shapes of hearts. Same with the butterflies, different sizes and shapes. Same with the snowflakes. You've got lots of variety there. And that helps to create the visual interest on the card. But there are many stamp sets where there is a repetitive motif and different sizes and varieties that you could use to make these cards. So I really hope that you enjoy this fun fold. Do me a favor, and if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'll ask again, please click on the word subscribe in red so that you become a subscriber to Handmade with Holly. And also please click on the notifications bell so that you're notified each time I upload a new video. Also, if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to become your demonstrator. So down in the description, there's a link to my online store where you can purchase any of these products except this designer series paper with the snowflakes. This is now retired. Again, this is a sample that I've had for quite some time, and I used it today to work out measurements for my sample card. So I want to thank Pat Selhoff and her daughter Laura Bauer for what was an awesome class back in 2020, and for the inspiration to get me started today to use some of my current stamp sets to make these adorable designs for you. In the comments, please leave me a note and let me know which is your favorite. Do you like number 1, the Highland Heather version of Sweet Conversations? Number 2, the pool party version of Sweet Conversations? Number 3, Butterfly Brilliance? Or number 4, Snowflake Wishes? I'd love to hear which one is your favorite, and I hope that you enjoy trying out this awesome fun fold. Thanks so much for spending your time with me. I really appreciate it. Until the next time. Bye.